In terms of the contract language, you're talking about class size, class composition, non-enrolling ratios we have as well. That was mostly bargained before it was a provincial item. So that's way back in, I guess, the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Since it's become provincial, there has remained differences in the language around the province, and we have worked on bargaining it. We've made some improvements, particularly in class size, but it is an issue that can be difficult to bargain for. In terms of class size, it's quite simple. I mean, we have a lot of places across the province. You'll have a cap of 24, so say up to grade 7. In those intermediate grades, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they'll just simply say that the class can't be over 24. And obviously, the parties also work together sometimes when necessary, because in some small, remote, rural locals, sometimes there is 25 children, 26 children in the school district who need to go to that class. So obviously everybody works reasonably together when there's a situation like that. But generally speaking, something like class size is quite simple. You just put into the language that, no biology 12 lab class will have more than 24 students, because that's what those rooms are built for, to safely handle. So it looks different, like I said, in different locals, but there's technology classes often have a lower class limit for safety reasons, elementary and secondary. So you just put in the number you want. In terms of what out here is usually termed class composition, the structures of classrooms that support best learning for everybody, that is definitely a little bit more tricky. How you deal with that, how you recognize the fact that there are all students benefit from more one-on-one attention, but there are students whose learning needs mean that they need a little more one-on-one attention and or support from another adult. So there are a variety of ways it's done out here, which is that you can recognize students with designated special educational needs as meaning that the class needs to be smaller, so that teacher has the appropriate amount of time to spend with each student. And that's what a lot of our language is modeled around. It has certainly become more difficult to bargain over time, just to be really honest. The last few rounds have not been super productive in that sense. And it's an understandable reason. It's frustrating because from our perspective, it's largely political. The amount of dollars, when you just look at raw dollars that are invested into public education, look very big. Right? Like our budget is $2.something billion, which is an immense amount of money. But when you look at that as the wealth of the province, as a percentage of GDP, as what does that mean? It's actually declined by almost half in our province, the investment in education per GDP. But because the numbers are so big, and when you start reducing class sizes, that means having to hire more staff, that means potentially more buildings. So the numbers get very big very quickly. So governments are hesitant to have to agree to things that cost that much money, which is disappointing and frustrating, because as a Saskatchewan teacher are doing, yes, it matters to me what conditions me and my members work in, but mostly it's about our students able to get the best learning opportunity they can. Can you keep those teachers? Can they teach the students in those conditions? So it's difficult because the numbers are large, and it's hard to get individuals who aren't engaged in the system always to fully understand the implications of a class size that's a couple lower and what benefit that has for the students and for the teachers.